Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of Deportes Nation podcast. And what we've gotten to is the video podcast these days. And today with us, a very special guest. We have author with us, Brandon Sneed. And I'll read the full title of his latest book. It's Sooner, The Making of a Football Coach, Lincoln Riley's Rise from West Texas to the University of Oklahoma. So let's welcome in Brandon Sneed. First of all, Brandon, thanks for joining us here on Deportes Nation. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Great, thank you. And where are you today, by the way? And before we even get to that, I hope you and your family are doing well. 2020, Brandon, has been a crazy year. I hope that your family are doing well health-wise.
Yeah, no, we're thankfully we've been all good. No worries there. And yeah, I'm in Greenville, North Carolina, a little small college town about an hour east of Raleigh. So just kind of been laying low out here, trying to ride it out like everybody else.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about, before we get into the book about Lincoln Riley, how did you get started and interested in the field of sports?
Well, just grew up, playing all the sports. Grew up in a neighborhood full of kids who loved playing sports. I got into it at a young age, and then thought I'd try to be a pro baseball player. So went to college to play baseball. That didn't pan out, but loved writing too. They told me if I was a journalism major, I didn't have to take any more math courses. So
that motivator, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it just was such a natural intersection of all my interests. I love sports. I loved writing. I loved learning, and saw it as a chance to get paid to go learn about, really interesting people and interesting stories. And, just kind of wrote it from there. And here we are.
So let me ask you, how did you get interested in OU football and in particular with Lincoln Riley?
First, I got familiar with Lincoln when I was actually in grad school at East Carolina University, which is here in Greenville. And he was the offensive coordinator here at the time. And East Carolina football's, we have a good time with it around here, but they're not historically one of the better teams in the country. They're normally not very good.
Right.
And he came in with Ruff McNeil as this 26-year-old offensive coordinator, and everyone around town's like, who the heck is this guy? What's he going to do? By the end of his 5 years there, they've, set passing records. They hold like the top 5 passing records of a whole bunch of different categories at ECU. And, he got him ranked in the top 25 in the country at one point, and, it just did a lot of special stuff here. And so I was aware of him at that point, but never really wrote anything about him until he was named the head coach at Oklahoma when he was 33. I was a writer full-time for Bleacher Report at the time. And so just pitched them story on him. They sent me out there for a week or so and spent some time, getting to know him, and wrote a profile of him for Bleacher Report's BR Mag. That was in 2017. And then, just always thought his story had a natural sort of narrative arc to it that lended itself to, a full book treatment, which is unusual for a guy he was 33 at the time. He's 36 now. He's pretty young to have a book written about him, but he just had this sort of cinematic storyline that, I just loved. And my agent was the one that actually really pushed for me towards the end of 2018, let's get a book proposal together. Let's see what happens. And, one thing led to another, and now I got the book out, and it's been really cool.
How about the access? People may have an idea about following someone or writing about someone. How did the access come around? How did he let you into his life, if you will, to make this really a reality?
Well, for the book, he didn't. Because he considered it briefly, but he was really uncomfortable with that, the idea of doing a book.
Yeah.
So access-wise, most of the access I had to him, and some of the people close to him came working on that profile, which, I'd always, I've had friends who joke, like I research, these profiles, these stories, like I'm writing a book anyway. So I had a lot of extra stuff from that. Really the book, it didn't reveal anything profoundly new.
Sure.
It was just basically connecting the dots and expanding out this story that I already knew about him, that I just had written a 3,000 word profile about him. And there was a 300-page book waiting there, and so I wanted to piece all that together. obviously wish I could have gotten more access to him for the book, but I understood why he didn't want to do it. I didn't really, I pushed a little bit, said, hey, let me try to talk you into it, basically. And he just, just didn't want to. And which is fine. I think that reflects on him pretty accurately. I mean, he's a humble dude. He didn't want to, just thought it would just, the perception of it would be weird, but I think really it's just there's also, I talked to Mike Leach a lot for the book, and Mike Leach said there's almost a superstition to coaches getting involved with books about themselves. Like it's almost a jinx you get scared of. He told me a funny story because he said he started working on his first book, and then that was when Mike Leach ended up getting fired from Texas Tech back in the day. So he said he could understand, it's just, it's a little bit of not wanting to buy your own hype, but there's a little bit of that, athlete superstition going on with it too. So,
sure. So
yeah, it was, yeah.
Forgive me, Brandon. When you started researching and learning more about Lincoln Riley, and literally his beginnings in West Texas, to where he is today in such a short amount of time relative to any profession, what stands out? I mean, the words football genius are thrown out a lot. He, I believe, is humble, like you mentioned, and gives it a different context. But obviously, I think it's several things: talent, opportunity, and timing. I think that's maybe consistent with anybody that's successful.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like a just ridiculous amount of luck involved, at least in one, that's how it can look sometimes. It's just, you got to be the right place, the right time. You got to meet the right people at the right time, get the right people in your corner. But kind of, I mean, this touches on the question of access. I didn't necessarily get to spend time with him for the book, but I still, I flew out to West Texas. I drove up and down the length of West Texas. I explored his hometown of Muleshoe.
Right?
Yeah, in tiny town in the middle of West Texas, just nowhere. And that, I think that to me, that, if you're a bright kid in a town like that, I mean, you're going to go a little nuts one way or another. And I think for him, a lot of that got channeled into football. He loved football, and then he has a really, really he's a brilliant guy. And so all this intellectual energy, I mean, just went towards mastering this game, and it's almost this prodigy like feel for the game I think he developed just as he didn't have the ambition of being like a coaching prodigy. He wanted to be a college football quarterback and possibly a professional quarterback.
Right.
That's what drove him as a kid, and even as an 19-year-old freshman walking on to Texas Tech, that's what was motivating him, is he wanted to be a good player, and he didn't have the arm for it because he messed up his shoulder in a stupid play, when he was 15, tackled a guy in a scrimmage. He should have just let go, dislocated it, and could never throw the same way again. But he still had that mind, and that's what Mike Leach identified in him, is he said, you're never going to play, but, you can be a pretty good coach. And that's kind of where it all started for him. He just wanted to be a good player.
Joining us here on Deportes Nation, we have Brandon Sneed, the author of Sooner, The Making of a Football Coach, Lincoln Riley's Rise from West Texas to the University of Oklahoma. And when we talk about that rise and that path to being the head coach at one of the most prestigious football universities in the United States, is he someone that is ambitious in that sense? You mentioned maybe he's humble, but is he ambitious? Is this what he wanted? Is this, from your perspective, Brandon, what he's not necessarily destined for, but what he's worked hard to accomplish? And as a follow-up, if that is the case, in your opinion, I'm sure he's not done yet.
No, he's definitely not done yet. There's certainly, ambition there. But I don't think that, because a lot of people who become great, I mean, they're driven by something, like some need to prove something almost.
Right.
And at least from what I've been able to learn about him, I don't see that so much as I just see he's a bright, brilliant guy who he loves this game, and he loves figuring out how to be good at it. He loves being great at the game. He loves being great at what he's doing. So I think that ending up at Oklahoma was more a matter of just opportunities started coming to him down a lot of other opportunities. I think, the University of North Carolina, I'm pretty sure, offered him some stuff before Oklahoma. I think Notre Dame offered him some stuff. I mean, so he was getting offers like that. He was waiting for the right chance. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's okay. Like at first he thought he'd just be a high school coach. Once he realized he wasn't gonna, be a football player, he just kind of figured he'd go try the try to be a player. And if that doesn't work out, he'll go coach in a small town.
Sure.
His wife would be a cheerleaders coach and they'd be happy. I really think he would have been happy like that. And, just once you realize what you could be capable of, then, you got to explore that a little bit, so he's, I think that what really gets him going though is helping the players be good. I think it's a lot. I really think he might be one of the rare ones where he really means it when he says it. If to him, it's about making the other guy successful.
Right.
I think it really hurts him if he doesn't help a guy fulfill his full potential, because he's been there. He knows what it means to have that potential and not fulfill it. Especially quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and then Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts is now a starter in the NFL. It's 3 years in a row former OU quarterbacks are rookie starters. So I'm rambling a bit.
No. But all that is accurate. Brandon, let me ask you, speaking of players, of all the great athletes that are recruited to OU, of the great athletes that go on to play professional, what is that relationship with? In your book, you write about how he stops players on campus. They have chats, they have conversations. I imagine, like any coach, it's not only about, hey, I'm this figure of authority, but in a way, we have to have a relationship and get to know each other, because that's how you, in a way, motivate your players.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming a more common understanding now. It used to be this almost employer-employee, general grunt relationship. And now it's more and more of a partnership. And so that's kind of how he approaches it, is he tries to, and for him, it's a real thing for him. He really cares about him. He really loves him. I think that he hasn't lost touch with what it felt like to be in their position. It's tougher now as a head coach. When he was an offensive coordinator, it was easier to stay as connected. There's fewer players that you could give more time. So you had fewer responsibilities, big picture wise. So it's been an adjustment, but it's something that matters to him, and they feel that because he puts in the effort for it.
Being in traditionally a top 5 or certainly a national championship contender every season, how do you think he handles the pressure? Does he thrive on it? Is it disconcerting to him? Does it take him, to use my term, does it get him out of his groove, or has he learned to just deal with the pressure that comes every year, because literally one loss and people are on your back at Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think he thrives on it. He doesn't really think about it as pressure. He told me once he doesn't see pressure as some kind of negative thing to overcome. It's more about, all right, well, here's the challenge in front of us, and that's exciting. He likes a challenge, and that's how most coaches like him view these things. Is these aren't things to fear and to battle and to it's all right, here's the next challenge. How can we overcome that? It's not something that's like an enemy. It's just like the next thing to do. And, so you give it all you can to do it. But he had success at his very first offensive coordinator assignment was after Leach gets fired at Texas Tech. Lincoln's 25 years old, becomes the acting offensive coordinator for a bowl game against Michigan State, on a week's notice, and they end up winning the game, and so he pulled that off. And so pressure's never been something that gets to him. I think that challenges can be tougher sometimes than others. But you look at what they've done this season. They lost I think it was their first 2 conference games.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And okay, well, they're out of the top 25. It's going to be a bad year. Now they're in the title game. They actually have an outside chance at the playoff again, even after starting the season the way they did.
And with Ohio State maybe not getting the minimum amount of games, maybe an outside chance, as you say.
And all that with Spencer Rattler, the youngest, least experienced quarterback he's had yet. So I think that pressure is something he just kind of rises to.
When we look back on the Lincoln Riley era, whether it's he's there for another year, another 10 years, another 20 years, and maybe you can give us your take on how long he'll stay at OU before a next step. It could be professional, it could be someplace else. What legacy will he leave behind? Is he a Barry Switzer type? Is he going to be remembered for the championships, the titles? What legacy do you feel Lincoln Riley will leave at Oklahoma?
Well, right now it's QBU. He's producing the best quarterback year in and year out. And I think that at the very least, he knows how to make a good quarterback. He's three, like I said, I mean, the last three guys he's had, two of them won the Heisman. The other was a finalist. They all became starters their rookie seasons in the NFL. They're all doing well. You know, Jalen Hurts is about to be the Eagles starter for the first time starting next week. And that's after taking over for Carson Wentz, who was,
Sure.
you know, thought it'd be a pretty big deal when he was first signed by the Eagles. So it's, yeah, I mean, so far that like he knows how to make a good quarterback, and they've made the playoff every year he's been a head coach. I mean, you want that national championship, and like, I think that'll come. But I mean, it's just, he's consistently very, very good. He's consistently very good at adapting and being what he needs to be. I think his legacy, like if you were to get more granular with it, is like he's always willing to change in the ways he needs to change. You know, he's always trying his best. It's not about him imposing his will on the game or his players. It's he's trying to be fluid with what players he's got, what the game is asking of him, and how can he become and make his team what it needs to become to be successful in that.
Brandon, what will fans get out of your work, your research, your time around Lincoln Riley? What do you think should be some of the takes that OU and Lincoln Riley fans would gravitate after reading your book?
Well, I mean, my first goal with it really became just, you know, it was just this great, entertaining, real world sports story. I mean, it felt like a movie to me, and so that was my goal, is just to give people a good time. I mean, it's a biography, but I mean, it's really more just his origin story. I mean, he's got another 30 years of coaching ahead of him,
at least, yeah.
He wants to, you know. So it's like, it's certainly not the definitive Lincoln Riley tell-all anything. It's like, it's this really cool, fun origin story about, you know, how a kid from the middle of nowhere in West Texas got to where he's at, how the air raid offense made that possible, how he became great at it. But also it's about the people along the way. I mean, he's very adamant about, like, he couldn't be where he is without, you know, a lot of really important people helping him get there, you know. And so that's kind of true for all of us wherever we're at. I mean, yeah. You know, we're not going to get anywhere without the right people helping us. And no matter how great we think we are or could be, like, we always got to have, you know, relationships. We got to take care of those. And I think that's a big part of it too. Is, I mean, that's just that's being human. Like, you gotta, it's sports, media, whatever we're doing. I mean, if you're taking care of your relationships, people being good to you, you're being good to them, that sets you up a lot better in the long run too.
It certainly does. So where do you see Lincoln Riley? And we can take it in steps. And in 5 years, in 10 years, in the 30 years, like you mentioned, does he eventually, like many college coaches, especially younger ones, crave what many want, which is that next step to the NFL? Is that a logical next step at some point for him?
Right now, I'd say it's 50-50 for him. I mean, I think, like, you know, I haven't asked him about that since 2017. But I mean, what he told me is the same thing he's been telling people, you know, since, you know, this year. I mean, the question always comes up. But I mean, the sense I got from him was he's happy to do the best he can where he's at right now. Like, I think part of him really, a big part of him really loves that college level. I think he feels like he understands it really well. The coaching style is different. The players are just different. They're at a different stage in their lives that, you know, there's a lot more into it than just the what's going on the field. Right. I think matters a lot to him. Plus, he really likes, you know, being close-ish to home with his family. He likes having a sense of roots with his family. But again, if the Dallas Cowboys job keeps coming up again and again, I mean, it's close to home. Like, he's got connections in the Dallas area. Like, that's a place that was kind of like home to him. One of his mentors, you know, lived there for a long time. Like, so he knows that Dallas area pretty well. So, I mean, it's the Cowboys. Like, you gotta, I think, you know, it'd be unrealistic to say he's not tempted by it.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's a pretty diplomatic guy. He's never going to say, "Oh yeah, I've definitely been thinking about that." But I mean, if you're a competitive, ambitious person in sports of any kind, like, you're going to think about it. Like, I mean, everybody wants to win a Super Bowl, right? I mean, it's there. It's there,
yeah.
But yeah, I do think he really likes being OU's coach, and I think he'd be happy there for a long time.
As we close out, Brandon, did you find anything surprising about Lincoln Riley? It seems in many ways it's too good to be true. It's almost like a fairy tale story. You know, you look at his family, you look at his humility, you look at his work ethic. Will one day we find out something maybe that we don't want to know? And I'm not speculating on anything in particular. Is he a human being like the rest of us? We have good days, bad days. We have not everything is perfect in life.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, he's human. I mean, as far as if there was something like some scandal that I knew about that was brewing, it would have been in there. I don't know. I don't know about anything. I mean, who knows? The college football world's weird, man. I mean, I feel like there's just shadiness like embedded in it everywhere. I haven't seen anything personally at Oklahoma though.
Yes, sir.
But like, it wouldn't shock me at some point. I mean, I feel like it's every coach. Like there's always these moments where you have these decisions that, you know, but I don't know of anything. No.
Sure. Well, to wrap up, so that's how you see, you know, we want all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to take a moment, especially if you're OU fans, if you're football fans, if you're Lincoln Riley fans, to get the book. The book's available almost anywhere. I started reading it via my iPad. You know, I'm old school, so by the way, it's huge. I don't know if you can see that.
Nice.
This is the way I read my books.
Nice.
But where can people find it, Brandon?
Amazon. I mean, your local independent bookstore should have one. If you can't find it there, IndieBound. I mean, Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy books, you should be able to get a hold of it.
And what's next for Brandon Sneed? What are you working on next, young man? Again, you still have a long career, and we want to wish you the best of luck. But what are you working on?
Yeah, no, I'm actually kind of figuring that out right now. I had some stuff that was lined up, and then COVID just decimated a lot of that in a couple of different ways. So I'm in a weird spot right now, actually.
Really?
You know, today, as you asked me. Yeah, I'm writing some fiction though. That's fun. I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I've had some free time while I'm waiting for other stuff to pan out. So, I mean, I don't have anything real specific lined up. I got some book proposals out or in the works with my agent, but nothing pinned down at the moment. You know, so fingers crossed on that one. Hopefully something comes through soon.
Well, you don't need my recommendation, but I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the book Sooner, The Making of a Football Coach, Lincoln Riley's Rise from West Texas to the University of Oklahoma is a great read. Whether you're an OU fan or not, whether you're a Lincoln Riley fan or not, like Brandon said, it's an easy read. Well, I say that. But it is cinematic. It takes you through at least the career thus far of one of the most prominent and successful coaches in I call it American football, Brandon, because I also deal with football, as you well know. So, Brandon, we can't thank you enough, sir, for being with us. We want to wish you and the book and your career the best of luck, and we really appreciate you having been with us here on Deportes Nation.
No, please, no. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. And yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was Brandon Sneed with us. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for continuing to follow us here on another edition of Deportes Nation. I'm Alex Parra. Take care, and until next time.